Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Joy Mentor. I have the beautiful Jess Sermak here. She is a mother of five, wife, author, speaker, and life coach living in Australia. I want to read you a little bit about her. She helps women all over the world to connect inwards and align with their true soul purpose. She guides women to remember who they are and to learn how to completely accept and embrace their uniqueness to create a life they love. She is the author of Becoming a Butterfly, the life of her journey, following her as she falls in love with the Maasai warrior in Africa, becomes an attorney, lands her dream job, only to be swept away in what she calls the storm, as she is informed by police that her beautiful, loving mom is deceased and she and her sister are dragged into a terrible frenzy of media. Learn how she uses her grief and turns inward to peel back the layers of fear and vulnerability and discovers her true self. She guides us through her own metamorphosis to becoming a beautiful butterfly, living a life of courage and joy, aligned fully to her soul purpose and full of passion to help others. Warm welcome, Miss Jess. It's so good to see you, beautiful.
Thank you so much for that gorgeous introduction.
You are a gorgeous soul. So I want you to tell us a little bit about how in the world did you end up in Africa in love with a Maasai warrior?
Well, I can tell you it certainly was not planned. So I felt like I did the right thing and what my parents desired for my life, and that was to go to law school. So I did a double degree. I did a Bachelor of Law and I did a Bachelor of International Business. And one of my dreams that sat dormant in my soul for so many years was to travel to Africa and volunteer with kids. So I sold my car, I worked my absolute little tail off, and I found myself in the heart of Africa in 2008. And it was just the most profound experience. And so I got there and I volunteered with the most beautiful little kids at what we would call a daycare center. A daycare center is not something that you see over there, but this beautiful soul found in her heart to create this daycare center for kids to get them off the streets, because obviously women need to work, and a lot of these women have lost their husbands. And so she created this beautiful daycare center. And so I was working there during the day, and then at nighttime, there was a Maasai warrior on the front gate who was, in charge of, the security of the premises. And I just, got chatting to him, and I was just in awe of the cultural differences of it was just such a soulful man. He wasn't clouded by all of this, these things that we place, well, for many of us, place a lot of emphasis on, the money and the cars and the houses and the clothes and the occupations and those sort of things. And it was just such a beautiful experience to really fall deeply in love with, that soul to soul connection. So I hope that answers your question.
Wow, that is incredible. And I know you and I kind of have laughed about the fact that I ran away and married an Eskimo in a little village when I was younger. So I don't know, that tells you something about both of our wild hearts, I think. But it takes a lot of courage to have had that kind of incredible adventure and to have made the decision to go there. Like, what do you do to keep yourself out of fear when you're feeling fear?
Well, I can tell you that going to Africa and, going on that really, really long journey, it's so far away from any sort of support network or friends or family, was a huge step into that state of vulnerability. I went on my own. I was 24 at the time, but I knew it was something that was deep in my soul that I needed to do. It was just something that I'd had in there since I was a little girl. And I knew that I I had to push through this in order to have this significant growth, you know, that soul growth. And I think many of us can connect with that feeling of knowing that even though it's scary and super duper, you know, stepping into your vulnerability, it's just something that you know that you have to do. But to answer your question, how did I get over it? I made a decision, and I trusted myself enough to move forward with that decision. And it, you know, this idea that I was going to head to Africa and the timing of everything, it didn't quite, you know, it wasn't that one day I just woke up and I'm going to, you know, pop on over there. It was sort of a series and a sequence of events that you know, enabled that trip to happen. And I'm so grateful that it did, because it just, you know, when I did step into that fear zone and became more vulnerable, that was exactly where I had the most, like I had so much significant growth. And you know, it was a fabulous experience.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that about having so much growth, because it seems like it is in those moments. Like I always equate it to like a tightrope. You know, when
Mm,
someone is like, you're walking a tightrope, you're in the dark, and there's that bar that is coming towards you, but you can't see it. That kind of faith and that kind of courage is putting your hands out, knowing the bar is going to be there and jumping. So I love that that's what you did. So then I know that you came back to Australia. Would you share a little bit about that part of the journey with us?
yeah, sure. So after my adventure in Africa and you know, falling head over heels in love with this gorgeous man, you know, I landed my dream job, which was at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in the major crime section. You know, life was starting to get back to normal after being away for so long. And I finally felt like the pieces of the puzzle of my life were starting to fit together. And what ended up happening was 2 months after I got home, I had this knock on the front door. And it was the police. And I just remember just knowing, just this knowing that my life was, you know, never ever going to be the same again. And they basically told me that they had found my mum, but that she was deceased. And it was just as if somebody stabbed me multiple times in the heart. It was just gut wrenching. And my whole life changed from that moment. I unfortunately lost my job. That same year, you know, my beautiful dog was run over. My childhood friend unfortunately took his own life. And then here I was, November of this happened in January, and then November of that year, I sat lying on the floor of my bathroom, and I had a pregnancy test in my hands, thinking, there's just no way, like, there's just absolutely no way that this could happen. And, you know, the two lines came up, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, what else can you throw at me? You know what I mean? I've had the year from hell. You know, what else can you do to break me? And I think many of us get to that point, that breaking point. Um, and you know, trying to pull yourself out of that is just big. It's big.
Yeah, incredibly hard. And I know you have a sister and she had to go through that experience with you. Like, I'm
Mm,
wondering, like, what did you do to try to take care of yourself? You know, what things did you do to take care of yourself during a year that was just like you were falling apart, which I often think means, to your point, Jess, that we will start falling together. But at
mm,
that point, you were just falling apart. Like, what are some of the things you did to take care of yourself during your grief?
mm. So that year, I kind of describe it as an unraveling. It was the unraveling of, you know, all those emotions and those layers and those things that I'd put so much emphasis on in my life. You know, having a really great career, well, taken away. You know, having meeting the man of my dreams, falling in love, and you know, having that happily ever after. If you read my book, Becoming a Butterfly, you'll understand that that didn't happen. Losing friends and family. I mean, my mother's death was not just a straightforward passing. It was the subject of a criminal investigation. We had no idea what happened, and the only witnesses that were there were not, assisting in the investigation. What we did find out later in the year was that she had been assaulted at least 3 times. Whilst she lay there, she'd ingested some tablets. So obviously, she had that intention of wanting to take her own life. But whilst she was laying there unconscious, this man attacked her on 3 separate occasions, and he did a pretty good job of destroying her physical body. So it was grappling with the fact that she took her own life, but also grappling with the fact that in her final hours, she didn't have that happily ever after moment. She wasn't allowed to pass in peace. It was a very horrific, traumatic passing for her. But to answer your question, how did I get through that? It's a big thing when we have to go through deep trauma and deep tragedy. And one of the things that I had to realize was that I had to just stop and be super, super gentle with myself and accepting of where I was at this moment in my life, and understand that this was not going to be forever. If I needed to just sleep for the day, that's what I needed to do to be able to cope. And trying to go through that, with my sister, I talk about this in my book too, is that it was just all so much for us that we decided, the both of us, to take our own lives, to the 2 of us, which was, if anybody has a sister, you can understand how much deep pain that the both of us were in to come to that decision. And so for us to move forward in that year, we just had to take it one day at a time. We couldn't forecast our 5-year future, our 10-year future. We just had to take it one day at a time and find joy in the little things. So for us back then, it was the simple thing of just playing a board game together and suddenly realizing that you're laughing. Do you know what I mean? And finding that joy and finding the little things that would make me happy. And I remember one day I found myself just sitting there coloring in a coloring book. I was like, wow, I forgot that this used to bring me so much joy. Yeah.
It's amazing how some of those things like that from childhood really are things that can ground us again in that feeling of freedom. And I'm so grateful that you had her. And I'm grateful that you made a different decision and are still here with us. Now, can you talk a little bit about what started happening to where you started to get back into life? And then how did you start on this journey? I know you have a beautiful intention behind what you're doing now by helping women. And if you would talk a little bit about what turned it around, and then how did this intention get born to help others?
Yeah. Yes, it's certainly been a journey. It hasn't evolved overnight. But one of the most pivotal moments for me was I had my son, despite people's opinions. And I remember he was about 4 months old. And I remember it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Josh wouldn't sleep for more than 90 minutes at a time. It was just hell. And I remember just, laying there in this rocking chair with him and breastfeeding him, and just all these tears and these emotions, coming out of me from somewhere. And I remember just crying because I'd just finally ended my relationship with his father. And I was crying to my mum. I was like, why are you not here? Why did you choose to leave me? Why do I have this soul journey? Why did I pick this? I'm not strong enough. I'm not courageous enough. What do you want from me? Which I'm sure many women have asked themselves in that pivotal moment. And what came to me in that moment was that I had been, holding on to these dreams of being, a mum and a dad and a child, and having this, this perfect family. And what came to me in that moment was my mum just whispered to me, she's like, whose dream are you holding on to? This is not your son's dream. You know, this is your dream, and it's okay to change the dream. Dreams change, we evolve, we grow, and it's okay for that to happen. And so I made a decision in that moment that I had to move forward. I couldn't sit in this place anymore. And so I started with really little things, because obviously I had very little money because I wasn't working. And I started with just reading books and reading whatever. I went to the local library, so it was free. And I started digesting all these books on personal development and growth. And I started to really feel much stronger. It's like a muscle, you know, your personal development and your, you know, your spiritual side of things. It's like a muscle, and you keep feeding that, and it will grow. And it wasn't as though I woke up one day and said, you know, I want to be a life coach and I want to inspire and uplift and empower women. It was just this evolving, this growing, and this desire that just became so strong that I couldn't save my mum, and it deeply, deeply broke my heart for many years. But I can use her story to expand my life purpose, to expand my passion, to expand my joy. And now I get to meet the most incredible women, you know, from all walks of life, who have been through deep trauma and deep, deep tragedy, and to help them transform like that butterfly. And that's why, you know, that came to me for my book. You know, we don't just become successful overnight. You know, when I talk about success, I don't just mean money. I talk about, you know, they experiencing daily joy, experiencing happiness. So it is about that transformation. And that's what I do. I help women transform from that tiny caterpillar who's questioning life and devastated, and you know, feels like her life has just been shattered into 1,000 pieces. And we move through that journey, that beautiful, beautiful journey of understanding that that story is uniquely yours. It's uniquely yours. And so we use that to expand your purpose and your passion, because your soul asked for that story to transform you into the beautiful butterfly that you destined to be.
It's so true. And it's so beautiful, Jess. I say that all the time. I'm the best thing about everything that I've had to walk through in my life and that you had to walk through is that it ends up being something that helps us connect to other people that are going through that incredible time of transformation. And we understand the tools that we receive. So now we're able to help other people. And I love what you do. And I know how beautiful your heart is. You are literally an inspiration to me. And so I'm so grateful for that story. I know, and we talked about it at the beginning, you're also a mom of 5 children. So if you would talk a little bit about how do you balance all of this and balance the life with your children and your now wonderful husband. So how do you balance all that?
I call it organized chaos, because as you can imagine, you know, 5 being responsible and guiding 5 little souls who are completely different, I can assure you, can be challenging sometimes, you know, the balance. But one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give to any mother is that you really do have to put yourself first. And it took me so many years to realize that. But when you do, and you invest that time into the most best relationship of your life, that relationship with yourself, you know, all the facets of you become, you know, expand and become greater. So it is challenging at times, but my children also know that even though I'm their mother, I am also my own divine being, and I'm here on this planet to do my life's work, my soul's passions, and they understand that and they see that. And if I'm doing it, it means that it opens that space for them to do it as well, because, you know, we lead by example. And that's the gift that I really want to give, especially to my daughters, that, you know, they need to go after their dreams and their desires, because that's what makes us happy. That's what brings us joy. So yeah, I hope that answers your
Yeah,
question.
no, it's a great answer. That's interesting that you talk about that, because I can tell you, because my children are now grown, that incredible wish as a mom, right? To have your life benefit them, and that they
Mm.
can see that, like, yeah, they can do anything. I can tell you on the other end of it that my children are incredible now, and they are both amazing leaders in their own right, and it works, Jess. So I love that, but we are definitely always leading by example. And so I know that the journey of your children will be immense, as is yours. So I just want to say to everyone, Jess, you've got a free gift you want to give all of them. And I want everyone to know that her website is right down below this interview. Just click on it, you'll go there. She has beautiful resources. But Jess, will you tell them a little bit about the free gift that you're giving them?
Of course. So one of the biggest things that I see in my clients is that, let's be honest, they don't really have this deep sense of love for themselves. And that's the foundation. That is the most, I can't tell you enough, that is the foundational level where you need to start your journey. And so I have a free 10-day video series of how to love yourself deeper on lots of different facets, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and expanding that toolkit that you need in order to create, your dream life, and to really deepen that self-love and to move forward in achieving your big dreams.
And I know that you know, because you got there and you did it through unbelievable circumstances in your life. You are an absolute joy. Thank you so much for being with us, Jess. And everybody, please write down below to get to know this beautiful lady like I have. Thanks, Jess.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just so deeply honored to connect with you and your beautiful audience. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jess.